everyone fears it. Everyone tries to avoid it. And yet, failure is the one experience that every successful person has in common. But here is the truth no one tells you. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the process of becoming successful. And once you deeply understand this one thought, you'll never fear failure the same way again. The thought is simple, but it's powerful. It's this: failure is feedback, not a finish line. Let that settle in, because most people treat failure like the final verdict. They miss a goal, mess up once, or fall short, and they assume that's the end, that they're not cut out for it, that they've reached their limit. But that's not how winners think. That's not how growth works. In reality, failure is just information. It's data. It's a mirror showing you what didn't work, not who you are. When you see it that way, everything changes. You stop taking it personally. You start treating it practically. Instead of running from it, you start learning from it. And learning is the gateway to evolving. The difference between the average performer and the elite isn't that the elite avoid failure. It's that they process it differently. They use it. They analyze it. They let it shape their future decisions. They move forward faster because they're not stuck in shame or self-doubt. They've trained their minds to extract the lesson and move on. Failure becomes their fuel. But the world doesn't teach you this. It teaches you to hide your mistakes, to be embarrassed, to protect your ego at all costs. And that's the trap. That's why most people stop, because they believe failure defines them, when in truth, it refines them. Ask anyone at the top of their field. Athletes, entrepreneurs, creatives, leaders, all of them have failed more times than they can count. The only reason they're still standing is because they learned to interpret those failures differently. They built their success on a pile of lessons the rest of the world was too afraid to face. Here's the shift. Failure doesn't say you can't. It says, not yet. That one mindset change alone can save you years of frustration, because instead of quitting, you become curious. Instead of judging yourself, you get curious about the process. You become a problem solver, a pattern breaker, a builder. You stop needing to be perfect. You stop needing permission. You stop waiting for the right conditions to begin, because now you understand that every misstep holds a seed of mastery. If you're willing to examine it, when you adopt this perspective, you no longer walk into situations afraid of failing. You walk in focused on what you can learn. No matter the outcome, you start setting bolder goals, taking smarter risks. And most importantly, you detach your identity from your results. Think about that. If your identity is tied to your wins, then every loss becomes a threat to who you are. That's why people freeze. That's why they give up. But if your identity is tied to effort, to growth, to learning, then you can't lose, even when you lose. Let me say that again. If your identity is tied to learning, you can't lose, even when you lose. That's not just positive thinking. That's practical mindset architecture. It's how you build resilience, and in a world that moves fast, where setbacks are inevitable, resilience is your competitive edge. Now here's where it gets even deeper. Failure isn't just something to accept, it's something to expect. It's part of the path. If you're never failing, you're not really trying. You're staying in the safety zone, the comfort zone. It's a place where nothing changes and nothing grows. But when you're pushing limits, reaching higher, taking steps that scare you, failure is going to show up. It's the toll you pay for transformation, but the price is worth it. Because every failure gets you closer to the clarity, the skill, the breakthrough that you couldn't access without it. This is why you should reframe your relationship with failure completely. Don't just tolerate it, welcome it. Not because you enjoy the discomfort, but because you know what it leads to. You know that on the other side of that failure is a version of you who knows more, sees more, and does more. The most powerful people are the ones who can fail publicly and still keep moving. They don't crumble under pressure. They don't let setbacks rewrite their identity. They stay the course because they understand. Failure is a teacher, one of the best there is. If you listen closely, failure will teach you more than success ever could. Success is a terrible teacher. It doesn't ask questions. It just affirms what worked. But failure makes you reflect, forces you to dig deeper, to pay attention, to reassess your approach. It strips away ego and exposes the truth. And if you're humble enough to receive it, failure becomes your greatest advantage. Here's something else to consider. Failure isn't always loud. It's not just the big, obvious moments. It's also the quiet decisions, the shortcuts you take, the habits you avoid, the conversations you don't have, the opportunities you ignore. These subtle failures shape your future just as much as the big ones. So if you want to grow, start noticing them. Start using them. Start seeing them not as evidence that you're broken, but proof that you're building. The mindset that changes everything sounds like this. I failed, which means I tried. Now I'll try better. That's it. No shame, no drama. Just learning. Just movement. Just refinement. The people who win big in life don't avoid failure. They accumulate more of it than most people can handle, and they keep showing up. That's the difference. So what about you? What have you been avoiding because you're afraid to mess up? What idea have you kept inside because you're scared it won't be perfect? What goal have you abandoned because the first few attempts didn't work out? Whatever it is, it's time to change the story. It's time to stop waiting for flawless execution and start making progress. It's time to see failure as feedback, as your greatest opportunity to grow stronger, smarter, sharper. Because once you adopt this one thought, that failure is not final, it's formative, you become unstoppable. You stop fearing mistakes. You stop doubting your path. You start moving with purpose. You start building momentum. You get up faster. You adapt quicker. You lead better. And little by little, you become the kind of person who is no longer controlled by fear, but driven by growth. That's the power of one thought, one reframe, one mental shift. So the next time you fall short, remind yourself, this isn't the end. It's the information I need to level up and then keep going. Your failure is not your identity. It's your education. Use it well.